Welcome to my 3-part series about failed live streaming websites. This video will focus on a site called TinyChat. TinyChat was a website I frequently used back when I was in middle school. If I were to compare it to how it was in the past to how it is now, then I'd say that it went from a thriving city to a ghost town. And to be honest, it really doesn't surprise me. While TinyChat miserably fails to be relevant today, I can't say that it didn't create some unique content that can be hard to come across in today's live streaming economy. Before we get into anything else, let's dive into its background. TinyChat was launched in the February of 2009. It was a place where people could either make private chat rooms where they could chat through video and text to anybody they gave the link to, or make public chat rooms that would be open for anybody to watch. The people allowed to video chat in these public rooms would be determined by the original creator of that specific live stream. In modern times, TinyChat is most famously known as the website Doja Cat got cancelled over due to her behavior on there. TinyChat does not have the best reputation. Many have concerns about it due to some people using the website to livestream graphic content. Some also claim that the community has become more and more toxic over the years. If you go on TinyChat today, most public chat rooms have less than 20 audience members in them, whereas in the past, hundreds of live streams would have hundreds of people watching them all at the same time. Now that we have some context, let's get into the rise of TinyChat. During the time when TinyChat was popular, there was an obvious demand for livestream style content. The type of content people desired back in the day was very different than what audiences like to see now. Most live streams on TinyChat would consist of a group of people talking to each other casually. You can think of it almost as if it was like a podcast, except these conversations would be mundane, just as if you were listening to a private conversation between friends. And that was fine at the time. Back then, content was valued based on relatability. Something interesting about TinyChat is that physical appearance wasn't a huge factor for casual audience members when tuning into a particular live stream, unlike you now. Most people who hosted public chat rooms were very average looking and could still easily rise up the ranks all the way to popularity. While the majority of TinyChat content wasn't very visionary in itself, there have been a few truly creative projects that came out of it. One notable example is the Slenderverse ARG Caught Not Sleeping, where the creator of it used TinyChat's live streaming function to interact with fans and to further advance the storyline. Of course, using TinyChat in this way was a rarity. The reason why I think people at the time thought it was interesting to watch uneventful day-to-day substance was because of how audiences were more willing to consume media that they identified with over media that would seek out to educate, tell a story, or present opinions to the viewers. This is evident with how daily vlogs were wildly popular compared to video essays, documentaries, and commentary videos back then. Something else that stands out to me during this time period was that there was a phenomenon of people watching live footage from unsecured surveillance cameras. On the website I stumbled across, the most popular live stream featured an elderly woman sitting in a chair in her living room. And to be clear, this was broadcasted without the permission of the people who owned the security camera. The craziest part to me is that there was a live chat box with every live stream, and a lot of people would actually publicly chat to each other about what was happening in real time. This was honestly all pretty disturbing, but the reason I bring this up is because it shows me that there was definitely a market at the time for content as lackluster as people doing everyday things unknowingly to an audience. TinyChat is basically a step up from that, so it doesn't surprise me that it became very popular. It was congruent to the internet's culture and interests during the time it was successful. Alright, now let's talk about the fall of TinyChat. While there are a lot of contributing factors that led to its demise, I'm going to talk about what I speculate are the two biggest reasons it failed, and coincidentally they are both related to each other. The first is what we see on the surface, and the second is what we find when we dig a little deeper into TinyChat's ecosystem. On the surface, we see that the culture of the internet had changed drastically within a short amount of time. YouTube, once seen as a website to watch random one-off videos, was now a website where people would go and watch specific videos created by specific creators. From that period of time to the present, YouTube is used as a source of entertainment and information, similar to how older generations perceive and utilize television. Because people value unique and individual creators, this meant that the demand for quality and focused content was high. It was no longer enough to watch videos that seemingly did not have a purpose in mind. For example, popular vloggers Emma Chamberlain and Joanna Cedia have gained massive success through their vlogs, which typically have one or two concepts at the center of attention per video, rather than showcasing a bunch of random clips from their day-to-day lives. It makes sense why a lot of daily vloggers have lost relevancy since this cultural shift has occurred. And on a side note, the market for people wanting to view live unsecured surveillance camera footage has also seemingly depleted. With all of this in mind, it's not surprising that TinyChat collapsed as hard as it did. For a community that craves and places significance on niche content which is expected to offer entertainment or informative value, watching friends have a conversation on TinyChat was simply too boring and too broad for modern-day viewers to have an interest for. Of course, all this speculation only hits skin deep. Extending ourselves into TinyChat's root problem, we can see that this entire website was doomed from the very beginning. You see, the main problem wasn't the content, it was the users. Content can change and adapt throughout the years, but as we see time and time again, people cannot. The thing is that people who live streamed on TinyChat didn't really consider themselves as creators. They simply saw themselves as regular people who used this website to communicate and have a fun time with friends. But somewhere along the line, they managed to gain an audience. And because nobody considered themselves to be creators, they also didn't consider their audiences to be fans either. They saw them just as people similar to themselves who wanted to chat with others online. For example, if you take a YouTube channel run by a person who doesn't strive to be a creator and just uses it to post whatever videos they feel like uploading at the time, it's very likely that this YouTube channel will not gain any sort of success or popularity. It's possible that one of its videos might go viral, but if the person running the channel doesn't make a clear commitment to creating more content consistently with the audience or platform ecosystem in mind, then it'll be hard to keep any long-term success or relevancy. And this is exactly what happened on TinyChat. The people on there didn't try. They didn't change the content or the format of their live streams for a now more mature and growing community on the internet, who are hungry for more than bare-bones entertainment. YouTube's culture is made by people who want to be creators and gain a level of fame or popularity. This is why they can detect whenever the landscape evolves and change their content accordingly to stay relevant with the times. But this is not the case with TinyChat because it can be hard to pick up on these nuances if you're not actively looking for them. And why would you if you feel like you yourself are not a creator who's always trying to stay one step ahead of the curve? And yes, while some people were making money on TinyChat, I don't really think that people saw it as their main job and more as a side hustle as opposed to most YouTubers. And I honestly think that's okay because I genuinely don't think that most people on TinyChat ever wanted to be famous in the way most digital content creators are nowadays. I'm sure they're doing perfectly fine, but of course, TinyChat has suffered drastically because of the overall attitude and culture of their users. So where does that leave us? Well, it leaves us with a forgotten website full of forgotten memories. TinyChat was a product of its time, and for a while, it brought joy to a lot of bored teenagers and adults online. I hope I was able to explain everything clearly and coherently. If you have any questions or concerns, please let me know in the comments section below, and consider subscribing if you want to see more content like this. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Welcome to part 2 of my 3-part series about failed live streaming websites. This video will focus on an app called Live.me. Live.me was an app that I used probably during my earlier years of high school. Unlike TinyChat, I did not have a clear path towards what my conclusion was going to be, but as I started to take notes for this video, I ended up coming up with a couple of theories that are congruent with my personal experiences on this app. With that being said, let's jump into Live.me's background. Live.me was launched in the April of 2016. Going on Live.me was very much like going to the circus, as you could be scrolling through your feed and find one person convincing people that they're wildly generous by donating their time to do one free psychic reading a day for a random audience member, while another is hosting a talent show consisting of averagely to maybe even below averagely talented people for the ultimate prize of receiving a follow or shout out by said host. Various content creators of different genres flocked to Live.me to live stream whatever it was that they did. Whether it was art, music, comedy, dancing, or chatting, you could really find anything and everything there. There was really no expected type of content from the community as a whole, which can honestly be a little disorienting, but we'll get to that in a little bit. In modern times, Live.me is not really known for anything as it had a short lifespan of relevancy and failed to create any notable creators specific to the app. Of course, it has come under fire over the years for graphic content just like every other site of this nature, so it's nothing really new or surprising. Once again, unlike TinyChat, it's harder to see how unpopular Live.me became solely based on the amount of viewers per livestream alone. I suspect there's something off about how Live.me calculates the number of audience members of a livestream. Either way, I want to talk more in depth about all that in the fall section of my video. For now, if we take the amount of viewers per livestream at face value, I would say that the average livestream of a creator on there would be maybe somewhere in between the 1,000 to 5,000 viewers range. Now let's talk about the rise. Personally, I think the rise of this app is pretty straightforward. Before Live.me, Periscope was the app that dominated the mobile space in terms of live streaming. When Live.me launched the next year, not only were people curious about the app, but unlike Periscope, who promoted themselves as a broadcasting app with a specific emphasis on travel, Live.me marketed themselves as a live streaming service for content creators of all kinds. As explored in the first video of this series, digital content creator culture had really cemented itself in the online landscape, being one of the most important aspects of daily life on the internet. This smart decision that Live.me made ended up not only catching the attention of people who consumed content, but also people making the content. It's not like you couldn't live stream whatever you wanted on Periscope, but as I've realized over the years, no matter how a product functions, people take more comfort in knowing that it has been, or at least claimed to be, tailored for an aspect of their lives that they feel like they need to satisfy. For example, when I was in high school, I was a fan of the band 5 Seconds of Summer, and I was also very much into journaling. Therefore, I wanted a journal from Claire's that had pictures of the members on it and was also decorated with doodles/designs related to the band's aesthetics. Obviously, being from Claire's, it was overpriced and I could pretty much buy a journal from the dollar store that would serve the exact same purpose, but at the time I felt like I desperately needed this product just because I believed it was made to satiate my needs as a fan of 5 Seconds of Summer. Once I was able to convince my mom to buy it for me, I deemed it as special and would take better care of it than any of my other journals at the time, all because I was thrilled that I owned something that was created to represent this incredibly specific interest that was a part of my everyday life. The same concept applies to Live.me. People felt that they were part of a community of creators simply due to the fact that the app had said so. Live.me also experienced a lot of growth due to already popular content creators and even mainstream celebrities using the platform to connect with their existing fan bases. YouTubers including Dan Howell, Phil Lester, and Roman Atwood all used Live.me at one point, even if it was for a relatively short amount of time. Having established people participate in this new community acts almost like a shout-out, where even if the person downloads the app to initially only watch the content of one creator, they end up becoming understandably curious and start checking out other creators on the platform. And while I'm sure there were other aspects that contributed to its rise, I feel like talking about all that is not as nearly interesting or important to know about. So with that being said, let's talk about the fall of Live.me. So picture this, I went to VidCon for the first time in 2017. In the expo hall, Live.me had its own lounge which offered a lot of activities for people to do there, as well as hosted some live events such as interviews or games people could participate in to win prizes. I visited the Live.me lounge a lot during my time there, and it was very popular with people lining up to participate in whatever they were doing at the time. Also in 2017, there were many panels that featured Live.me creators. So literally what happened in 2019 when I was able to visit VidCon again, because when I went there was no trace or mention of Live.me anywhere, as if it had never existed. So what happened within these 2 years? Well, I'll try my best to explain exactly what I think took place. Live.me definitely had more focused material than TinyChat did, and that makes sense because Live.me was specifically a place to cultivate live streaming content that was meant to be consumed by an audience. If we look at the creators on the app on an individual level, it's easy to see while everybody behaved like a content creator, they weren't actually very good at creating it. Nobody was able to keep long-term success or relevancy due to not being able to come up with creative ideas to keep their audiences engaged. Once the creator decided what they wanted to do on Live.me, they would just do that over and over again. That combined with the sheer amount of e-begging really sunk the app further down. Between TinyChat, Live.me, and YouNow, e-begging was the most rampant on Live.me. The creators on there were far from subtle. They would often ask their viewers to donate to them in exchange for useless things such as a follow or shoutout from the creators themselves. There usually was never any physical or digital rewards with any monetary value. I estimate around 50 to 80% of any random live stream on there would be made up of e-begging, which would leave the stream devoid of much content, therefore completely ruining both the live experience and any replay value the stream otherwise might have had. Collectively, the creators made the app way too chaotic because they ended up establishing Live.me's ecosystem without a central community. There was little to no intersection of fan bases between the creators, nor was there any discussions about the community at large. Both of these characteristics are essential to the growth of any app or website nowadays. If we take YouTube for example, those who predominantly watch gaming content will still most likely have a basic understanding of the drama, events, and hardships that are present within the beauty community. Because of this knowledge that all communities on YouTube possess of each other, everybody has the opportunity to chime in with their opinion no matter which community is having an issue. With no central community infused with the unescapable repetitive content, there is really no reason for audiences to come back to Live.me after they got bored with their favorite creators, as they could see similar yet elevated content elsewhere. The sharing of fan bases is a very powerful way for creators to grow individually and collectively. Twitch is such a good example of this. It's very clear that creators on there contribute to the health of the website's entire community by supporting and building off of each other. Even if someone becomes uninterested in those they currently watch, they aren't forced off the platform because they can just switch to watching someone else that they were introduced to through the system of intersecting audiences. Speaking of audiences, the relationship between the creators and their communities on Live.me was weirdly cyclical and ineffective. Creators would rarely create environments for creative and/or clever audience interactions. The majority of the viewers would spam basic/boring questions or comments in the chat, and the creator in turn would answer those questions with basic/boring answers. It really just became a circular pattern between both parties that really led to nowhere. As you can imagine, if a creator's content on Live.me was based solely on audience interaction, it would make for a very boring live stream. Creators on Twitch are well known for their relationship with their fan bases, as they often can have hilarious, thought-provoking, or just straight-up provoking moments with them. Which is why, even if they so happen to have a style of content which is slightly less focused than what most people on Twitch go for, they can still grow on other platforms such as YouTube or TikTok, because they can take these moments and create content that is desirable enough for platforms like that. Creators were not able to grow on other websites or apps solely based around their success on Live.me. Even if a creator on there had a YouTube channel, for example, their live stream would most likely be unusable to create engaging videos that people would actually want to see on there. Constant interruptions of e-begging and an uninteresting relationship with the audience can be detrimental to any live streamer who would want to cross-promote their content elsewhere on the internet. Now finally, what I wanted to touch upon in this section that I mentioned earlier in this video is Live.me's audience in modern times. When I revisited Live.me for the first time in years, I was mildly surprised with some of the numbers a lot of the live streams are pulling in. Some of the highest ones had slightly over 10,000 audience members. Now keep in mind, relevancy and the amount of followers or viewers a creator has are not always congruent. Relevancy is more to do with the cultural impact someone makes rather than the actual number of audience members they have. We've seen time and time again that there are many smaller creators that are more relevant than some bigger ones, just due to the amount of influence they contribute towards the culture of the online landscape. So even if Live.me as an entire app has somewhat of a big following, it still fails to be relevant as it doesn't seem like it's known for anything or anyone. Anyways, when I decided to go into these live streams, I paid particular attention to the chat, and what I found is that even in live streams that are labeled with a high amount of audience members, it really seems like the same 2 to 3 people comment in the chat and sometimes gives donations. But other than that, the majority of the audience remains silent and does not actually engage with the creator at all. This seems rather strange, especially for live streams that supposedly have thousands of people watching. So this makes me speculate that either Live.me does not count the number of people watching at the current moment, but instead documents how many people have come into the broadcast in total regardless of who left, or the general audience of Live.me choose not to interact. And while the audience choosing not to interact can be for several different reasons, I believe a part of the reason for the community on Live.me is due to the persistent lack of a stimulating environment for worthy interactions, with it worsening considerably throughout the years. In conclusion, I believe Live.me failed because of the lack of community within the app itself, the disorientation of fan bases between the creators, and the seemingly shameless culture of greed which the creators did very little to hide and even actively encouraged. To me, Live.me felt almost like a show comparable to Instant Influencer, because certain people would become famous for a little while but ultimately fail to retain that fame long enough to advance their relevancy online. I hope y'all enjoyed this video and that it painted a decent picture of what I believe led Live.me to its downfall. As always, feel free to ask any questions or voice any concerns in the comments section below. Consider subscribing if you want to see more content like this. My third and final video in this series will probably take a bit of time to make, just like this one did, so stay tuned. Thank you for watching. Welcome to part 3 of my 3-part series about failed live streaming websites. This video will focus on a site called YouNow. YouNow was a website I regularly used during middle school and high school. Personally, I find YouNow's version of events the most interesting out of all the websites I talk about in this series. I remember my experiences on YouNow more vividly and have a much better understanding of the ins and outs of the ecosystem/community as a result. YouNow was launched in September of 2011. It can be considered a precursor and early blueprint for live streaming communities. It was considerably more successful than Live.me and TinyChat in terms of impact, which is why the influence of its legacy is still felt prominently today in online broadcasting culture. A handful of common practices and content structures used nowadays on sites such as Twitch originate from here. I know I haven't provided much information in this section of the video as I have in previous parts of this series, but I think presenting YouNow's story in a slightly different way would help everybody understand it more cohesively. YouNow is unique in the sense that its timeline is very much interconnected with other websites such as YouTube and Musical.ly. During its earlier days, YouNow felt more of an extension of those communities rather than a completely separate population with a completely separate system of values, beliefs, expectations, and behaviors. Because of this, its rise ran parallel to YouTube, with many significant live streamers on there being famous YouTubers. Most notably, Dan and Phil used YouNow for a good portion of time and brought in a lot of their audiences onto the platform. Furthermore, their watchers uploaded engaging and funny clips of their live streams to YouTube, which garnered even more interest from audience members of theirs who may have not been initiated into their YouNow content just yet. In my opinion, much of the rise of YouNow's community can be attributed to YouTubers and Musical.ly stars bringing exposure to the website, but as we saw with Live.me, that alone is not enough to sustain sustain a live streaming community's ecosystem. What was different about YouNow was that it did, in fact, start off with a small but significant central community that did not depend on the celebrity users of the website. Even if these established content creators brought in new people, I'd say a good chunk, if not the majority of those people, tended not to leave YouNow as soon as the creators they initially joined for did. Instead, they would go ahead and join the website's central community that rallied around live streamers that were specific to YouNow. These content creators, who I'll be referring to YouNowers, as well as their audiences, basically operated as a hybrid of their YouTube and Musical.ly counterparts. On the creator side, the values they upheld from YouTube included having focused content at the core of their live streams, as well as encouraging/rewarding loyalty among their followers. Traits that they carried over from Musical.ly was the use of physical looks and relaxed demeanors to propel themselves forward in popularity. Therefore, most of the content on YouNow was a mixture of casual chatting that followed along the somewhat loose guidelines of a specific topic or concept in mind. These could range from playing live music similar to the DJs and pseudo radio hosts of Twitch, all the way to hashing out or talking about drama that was happening and affecting people who used YouNow, just like YouTube's present-day commentary community. As for the audience, the qualities they retained from YouTube was dedication, support, and determination to interact meaningfully with creators they enjoy watching. Viewers would genuinely ask thoughtful questions as well as leave insightful comments in chat that was relevant to whatever the creators would be talking about at that moment. In terms of what they sustained from Musical.ly, the biggest would be placing an emphasis at best and importance at worst on the physical appearances of YouNowers. With the community and its creators fitting together as comfortably as a jigsaw puzzle, it's not hard to see why YouNow's ecosystem was so healthy for so long, which ended up pushing the website's prominence to astronomical heights, reaching as high as what we see with YouTube and TikTok celebrities in modern times. At its peak, famous YouNowers who held meet and greets at public spaces were able to draw dozens of fans who were eager to get a chance to meet their idol for likely less than 10 minutes. They also became highly sought out people at conventions such as VidCon and Playlist Live. YouNowers were also seen as more accessible because, unlike famous YouTubers, most of them were willing to walk around these events openly outside of time allocated towards official meet and greets. This also caused fans to constantly flock towards them in hopes of getting a picture, autograph, or the ability to have a conversation with them. At VidCon, a select few people from the website would be featured and asked to join panels, whereas it was far more common at Playlist Live to invite a good portion of famous users as well as dedicate entire panels to them. A large reason why I think that YouNow was so successful was because the people using the platform clearly had the intention to become influencers, and with that intention they knew how to navigate the online landscape quite beautifully. They utilized sharing fan bases, shouting each other out, and sending each of their audiences to each other's live streams to the fullest extent that they could. The creators really felt like a community and proved it by demonstrating their knowledge of the ongoings of every corner of which the central community was touched by. These YouNowers were clearly talented at cultivating the platform and stimulating a healthy environment for growth that was not required to be attached to other people originating from different websites. Now let's talk about the fall of YouNow. The community sharing their stronger half of values with YouTube was a double-edged sword. Yes, it made the audience members fiercely loyal and engaged with the content they were consuming, but YouTube, just like any other online community, evolves and changes relatively quickly. So naturally, when the values of YouTube shifted, so did YouNow's. During the fall period, viewers became heavily critical and started to see concepts such as talent or money in relation to the internet rather differently. This is most likely due to the rise of the criticism and commentary community on YouTube, who ended up creating somewhat of a baseline for what is morally correct when it comes to doing specific things online as a content creator. They made sure that they encouraged online audiences to question in what ways their favorite influencers were maintaining both the financial and the inherent parasocial sides of their internet fame. With these newfound standards, I think one of the main problems the YouNow audience had with the creators was the lack of diversity among them in every aspect. Whether we acknowledge it or not, diversity is a huge part of YouTube, not only in areas of features which people cannot control, but also in terms of content, presentation of uniqueness, and behaviors. Unfortunately, YouNowers were far from a diverse crowd in my opinion. From what I remember, most YouNowers were very conventionally attractive to the point that they started using this advantage in ways that ended up hurting their content, but I'll get back to this point in a moment. As I stated before, I started using YouNow in middle school, and if I think about how the standards of being beautiful was at the time, then I'd say it's even more narrow and racist than it is now. I remember lighter skin was equated to being pretty during those years, as my medium to darker skin was not considered to be a hallmark of beauty in either American standards or within the standards of my ethnic community. This led to a lot of popularity being delegated to white and or light-skinned creators who all had similarly conventionally attractive bone/facial structures and body types. While these features that are out of our control doesn't directly affect affect how someone's content might turn out. The way these concepts are emphasized and regulated within the community absolutely does. Finally, going back to the point I mentioned earlier, even though a lot of this stemmed from beauty standards, it's obvious that the importance placed on conformity spread to more crucial aspects of the site, such as how creators acted in front of the camera and ultimately into their content. I can see why YouNow's audience with their new critical eyes were dissatisfied with the YouNowers they once adored. All the live streamers on there had almost the same personalities, looks, and demeanors. Nobody had memorable or standout content, so I think viewers realized how interchangeable everybody was. In the end, you could go to any broadcast, stay until it ends, and then go to another one without any drastic changes happening to what you were watching previously. With all of this in mind, YouNow's influence as well as its size as a community had diminished to the state that it's in now. A website that people know about and can see the legacy of it surrounding contemporary internet culture, but is also a lonely and barren website now compared to how it once was. Because I already included my conclusion in the fall section of this video, I wanted to end with the findings of a small investigation I conducted sometime last year. I had decided to live stream on YouNow just for fun and to see how things have changed. Immediately when I went live, a ton of profiles came in my chat and started asking me really generic questions that had nothing to do with what I was talking about at all. I also noticed that my viewer count did not go up either. I realized that some quote-unquote different profiles were asking the same exact questions and had the same exact profile pictures as each other. While I did get a few people that I confirmed were real, the majority of the chat would be filled with these strange profiles. I also noticed that YouNow sorts their popular streams based on likes and not live viewers, which is incredibly misleading, seeing how the same person can like a stream multiple times. I clicked on some live streams with close to 100,000 likes and saw that their live audiences would be less than 100 viewers. Personally, I think all of these tactics are possibly used by YouNow to hide their low user base. Anyways, this officially ends my series about failed live streaming websites. I hope you all enjoyed it, and I sincerely wanted to thank everybody who has supported and engaged with this series. Whether you watched one or all parts, I am genuinely so thankful. These videos were a challenge for me to make, but extremely rewarding as well. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. This video is not sponsored, but it is made possible by Wasan Crane, a commenter on my Tiny Chat video who confirmed my experiences on Instacam were in fact real and not something I remembered incorrectly. Even with this confirmation, I still cannot say that I can depict Instacam with 100% accuracy, so please take this video as a mixture of opinion, personal experiences, and speculation rather than pure fact. With that being said, I wanted to sincerely say thank you to Wasan Crane and for everybody to enjoy the rest of this video. Instacam is a website that live streams footage from unsecured surveillance cameras on a global scale. From what I remember, according to the creator of the website, they had made Instacam in order to bring awareness to how easily surveillance cameras can be accessed by anybody if the owners fail to change the default username and password after purchasing them. In the past, the site showcased cameras watching over both public and private spaces, including the insides of people's homes and bedrooms. In the present day, it said that they now only allow live streams of public areas including street views, city views, as well as the insides and outsides of businesses such as cafes, stores, and gyms. Back in the day, Instacam was presented as an eerie, paranoia-inducing website by various YouTube videos and news articles. In my opinion, it was because of this coverage that it received as much attention as it did during that time. I myself stumbled upon this website when I was in middle school, most likely due to watching a video discussing it. The most popular broadcasts used to be those that featured people living inside of their personal areas of space for long amounts of time. Because of this, the targets of these streams would often be those that belong to vulnerable populations, such as young children and the elderly. As I remember, and Wasan Crane confirms, there were chat boxes included with every live stream where people would often talk to each other about what was happening in real time. With all of this combined, you might wonder what type of community would surround around Instacam. I think it could be split up into two groups. Those who used it to satisfy their morbid curiosities of what it would be like to peek into somebody's private life without them knowing, and those who used it for more sinister purposes. No matter which side you belong to, it was far from ethical. Daisy Jones, an associate editor for Vice UK who wrote an article about how she felt while watching surveillance camera footage from Instacam, sums it up the best, as I quote, "A site like Instacam, for all its appeal, is also inherently not good. There's something disturbing about being able to view a person without their consent, regardless of whether it's loosely legal or happening to all of us." Although I can't recall anybody ever saying anything remarkable within the chat boxes of this site, I'm sure many things had gone over my head as I was a child at the time. Any exposure I experienced was either directly from Instacam itself or YouTubers talking about how vaguely creepy it was. It thankfully never occurred to me that at that time I could go to outside sources such as Reddit and 4chan, of which both Wasan Crane and Daisy Jones can respectively vouch for, to take a deeper look into what the community was truly like. To be honest, I still don't have much of an idea of what it's like other than the fact that this website used to be a legitimate source of quote-unquote content for some people, which shows how much the expectations for the entertainment we consume on the internet has changed over the years. Nowadays, information about Instacam is much more obscure and harder to come by. I believe this is due to the creator of the site stating at one point that they no longer want any further attention to be brought to it. So if I end up getting a fat lawsuit and a copyright strike for this video, I guess y'all will know why. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, even if it's a little short. Please subscribe if you want to see more videos like this and about various other topics relating to the digital world. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Gossip websites on the internet that feature online celebrities at its core are a little diverse by nature. Some are well known while others remain mostly underground. Some cater to more feminine audiences while others tend to favor more masculine ones. And of course, each of them have their own functions and gossiping style. But one thing remains the same. Gossip websites are incredibly taboo. On one hand, we find the morality of these websites put into question all the time, and on the other hand, we find them being used as resources full of information and documentation of the behaviors involving various internet personalities. I've seen and assumed that deep dive commentary content creators on YouTube have used these archives of knowledge to aid in the creation of their videos. They serve as essential timelines of which events can be placed on and provide insight into the feelings the online community was experiencing. Personally, I have a very mixed opinion on websites like these. I can generally see the benefits of having a massive library of material that can be used for digital content that aims to educate about how people on the internet can be, but I also think that gossiping without the fear of consequences like this contributes to poor mental health for both the target and the perpetrators. Either way, I'll be talking about 4 of these infamous websites in this video. I'll be splitting them up into 2 groups, so let's go ahead and dive into the first. This first group are gossip websites of which feminine audiences tend to favor. Specifically, I'll be talking about Guru Gossiper and Lipstick Alley. Guru Gossiper is the site of this type I spent the most time on as a high schooler. It heavily focused on beauty gurus, hence the name, and had 2 of their biggest sections on the forum dedicated to them. One was their rave area where users commented positively about their favorite beauty YouTubers, and the other was called Trash a Guru, where users would post negative commentary. Some of these responses could give constructive criticism, and other times it could be outright hateful. Their third section included any and all influencers who didn't fit under the category of beauty guru. There was no separate places to trash or rave about them, so their forum threads would often be a mixture of both. The users of Guru Gossiper have a very speculative and analytical gossiping style. They question every piece of information they get and analyze every single aspect of it bit by bit. You can generally find essay-length comments on there that explain their opinions and point of views on those they're talking about. Nothing was off limits, therefore everything from relationships, finances, and personal life details were up for discussion and debate. This website genuinely had such a hypnotic quality to it. Once I'd start reading a thread, I wouldn't be able to stop for hours. Reading gossip can be like an addiction, and so can the feeling of being cynical towards others. One particular characteristic of Guru Gossiper was how defensive the users were regarding the ethics of what they were doing. A common argument they used when questioned would be that nobody should expect anything less from a site made for gossiping. They tolerated criticism against themselves from nobody, including other users, which they would sometimes accuse of being the online personality themselves. They would also commonly go after the physical appearance and personalities of their targets as well, commenting incredibly brutal remarks about them. Posts dissecting the trustworthiness of their targets based on little-known information can be seen throughout. Users of Lipstick Alley referred to Guru Gossiper as an equivalent website for, quote, vicious white women. Speaking of Lipstick Alley, let's explore it. On their official subreddit, Lipstick Alley describes itself as the internet's largest African-American forum. It has many sections for different topics, but I will focus solely on their area for gossiping about internet celebrities. Please keep note, I have no experience with any other parts of the website, so what I say in this video is not a reflection of them. The users of Lipstick Alley have a very concise and entertainment-focused gossiping style. Unlike Guru Gossiper, posts are generally on the shorter side, with them being straight to the point and humor being used often to soften their critiques. Within my experience, I've seen that users have veered more towards constructive criticism and are less nitpicky in general. They tend to stick with evidence and what is publicly known rather than speculation. I also noticed that their posts usually pertain to the target's content, career, and conduct versus their personality or physical appearance. I find Lipstick Alley to be the kindest gossip website I'm talking about today, but Urban Dictionary disagrees with me and points out behaviors from users and admins alike such as doxing and stalking, which are things I've been unaware about due to never being personally exposed to it when visiting the site. An issue I do know of is that there is a huge problem of users committing digital blackface where they pretend to be a part of the black community when they in fact aren't. Now that we've covered both Guru Gossiper and Lipstick Alley, let's take a swim in the opposite direction. The second group are gossip websites websites of which masculine audiences tend to favor. I'll particularly be talking about lolcow and Kiwi Farms. Lolcow came into the spotlight not too long ago because of the drama involving Creepshow Art and Emily Artful, where the former posted messages on their own thread pretending to be other people. I have a very limited experience with this website, but I'd describe the users as having a conversational and opinionated style of gossiping. I find that posts on there are similar to those in a chat room, with people chiming in with short and simple responses, as well as questions and answers being exchanged in a swift fashion. I have even less experience with Kiwi Farms because, to be honest, it scares me, but I'd say that users on there have an edgy and historical gossiping style. Both of these websites are more mainstream than the two I talked about earlier and therefore more controversial. Kiwi Farms is especially infamous for doxing, stalking, and contributing towards the deaths of people they've targeted. While the owner of the website has denied responsibility for this, I think it's silly to claim that gossiping anonymously doesn't add to the mental suffering of those being scrutinized under them. Despite all of this, both of these forums are used as an asset by creators due to their vast and detailed documentation of various online celebrities. These archives can be easily sorted through, seeing that they often feature less analysis than their feminine counterparts, which allows the distinction between fact and speculation to be made. Other than that, I have nothing else to say. It's hard not to be biased when talking about a subject like this. Just like most things on this channel, there's always a tint to everything due to my personal experiences and relationships on the internet. I'm very interested to hear the testimonies of other people who've had run-ins with these websites. Let me know if you had similar/different encounters or would like to share any information that you'd like me to know. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please consider subscribing if you'd like to see more content from me. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. This video is part 1 of a 3-part series that I'll be doing on my channel about strange websites that you can visit online. Each video is going to be super short in length, but we're going to be talking about some pretty interesting stuff, so stay tuned. Without further ado, let's talk about our first website, sightings.com. Sightings.com is a website dedicated to archiving and documenting videos about strange occurrences all over our world, such as UFO sightings, paranormal activity, and signs of life on Mars. Its tagline is "The truth is out there." So the website features 32 different videos and 1 article, with the oldest being from 8 years ago. All of these videos can be publicly accessed on YouTube, except for the ones that are missing or deleted. So all of these videos are from different content creators and YouTubers. They are split up into 3 different categories. One of them is called UFOs, the other one is called Mars, and the last one is called Strange. All of them feature different things. So UFOs obviously feature UFO sightings, Mars features stuff about civilizations on Mars, and Strange is kind of the miscellaneous category. To be honest, I couldn't find a lot of history about this website. I don't know who the owner is, I don't know who made it, I don't know for what purpose they made it, whether it's a parody website or whether they're serious. I have no clue, but I think it's an interesting website nonetheless. And also, another interesting fact about this is that it is for sale currently, so you could be the next owner of sightings.com. Anyways, check out this website, see what you can find, and let me know if you want to see a reaction from me and my friend to any of the videos on sightings.com. Bye! This is part 2 of a 3-part series about strange websites you can visit online. Today we're going to be talking about FogCam, the internet's oldest operating webcam in the world. It started in 1994 at San Francisco State University as a part of a student project. These students were Jeff Shorts and Dan Wong. They were the ones who created FogCam. It updates every 20 seconds and looks over the campus of San Francisco State University and its students. It almost got shut down a few times because of privacy concerns, but they prevented that by changing its locations a few times. There's not really much to say about it besides that it's a cool project and that it still runs today. Go check it out, see what you can find, and see if there are any new discoveries to discover. Anyways, my next video will definitely be longer than this, and it'll be about a brand new website, so stay tuned. Bye guys! Do you remember the last time you created something with someone special when you were younger? It may have not been a masterpiece, but it means a lot to you. Since today is National Best Friends Day, my best friend Silver and I wanted to share something that we created together a long time ago when we were young teenagers, a blog called wheredidbirdieGo.wordpress.com. We both hold this blog dear to our hearts because it's a piece of our history forever preserved on the internet. So sit back, relax, and let Silver and I tell you a story from years ago. Residents of the Maple Woods. Hey outside world, this is my first true connection with you guys. It's really exciting because I finally get to talk to you guys and share my life. So I'll start by introducing myself. I'm Kyra, I'm 15 years old, and I live in the Maple Woods along with many other people. You probably won't find us because the scientists do a pretty good job of hiding us. Usually kids and teens don't work here, but sometimes I work with fashion and clothes designing. And I also help out at the one and only clothing store/shop. I never had any connection to the outside world because the scientists finally came around to providing us computers and internet. So it's super exciting to all of us. Unfortunately, they blocked many sites because they don't want anybody to track us, but unfortunately, they said no one can track us through this site. Another thing about our town is that everyone is concerned and constantly looking for a girl named Birdie. She was an escaped experiment, and for whatever reason, she means a lot to all the scientists. On the trees of these woods, you can always see signs asking, "Where's Birdie? Where did Birdie go? Where did Birdie go?" Or missing signs like "Missing Birdie." Our residents are quite obsessive about her, actually. Another thing about the Maple Woods is that it's haunted by a bloody woman ghost. Most people call it the BWG. She's terrifying. In fact, we're all taught how to stay safe from her at a very young age. Anyway, my best friend Silver will be posting on this blog too. We've been friends forever since we've been taken here, so watch out for her posts. Kyra.
Silver Inn. Hi, I'm Silver. My story is pretty similar to Kyra, so you probably know where I come from. This is my first time being on internet, so sorry if I'm misspelling words. It's very exciting and a whole new experience for me and Kyra. But anyway, I'm Silver and I'm 13 years old. The scientists have been very generous by giving me and Kyra some connection to the outside world. No, we aren't aliens. We just live in the Maple Woods with the scientists like normal people. Unlike Kyra, I have no job because I am too young, but when the scientists need help, they call up for me to help with the projects. Also, every morning in the lab, before meals and before bed, the scientists give me a drink to keep me sane because they work on me a lot. I don't know what that means, but the scientists say that it helps my health. If I don't take my dose, then I become a freak, whatever that means. But I still never skip a day. Anyways, you are probably wondering, what is Maple Woods? I am not allowed to tell in details, but Maple Woods is a section in the woods. It's pretty difficult to find, but the sky is always red, making it seem magical and unreal. The scientists say that far on the other side of the woods, the sky is blue. Doesn't that sound silly? It's impossible for me to imagine that. So that is all for now. I hope to see others enjoy me and Kyra's posts. Silver out.
Rainy day. As much as I'd like to show you guys what the Maple Woods looks like in color, I can't because every photo taken here can only ever be taken in black and white. Anyway, these are what our trees look like. They've been experimented on too, that's why they might look strange to an outsider. Anyway, today was a really weird day, to be honest. It was raining, which is something that never happens here unless the bloody woman ghost is coming. She hasn't come in a year actually, but it's no surprise to us that she would come now. Usually rain is a 1-month signal, but it's very unreliable, of course. I'm almost certain that when the rain stops, all the scientists and residents will start to prepare ourselves for when the bloody woman ghost comes to visit. Anyway, blogging is supposed to be about my life, right? Well, besides the fact that today was a rainy day, the scientists decided not to perform any experiments on me, so I decided to go visit Miss Gracie so that I could practice and learn more about makeup art. I find it extremely interesting because makeup is such a rare thing to find here. Now that we have internet, I'm learning so many new things about makeup and fashion. But I have to admit, the fashion and makeup styles in the outside world are quite strange. Styles such as everyday or natural don't exist here. We only wear styles which you guys say is fancy. Outsiders also seem to lack wearing jewels on their faces. You'll never find a girl or a woman here without jewels at least underneath their eyes. Men and boys tend to wear jewels on their ears. After my visit with Miss Gracie, I went to our downtown to eat lunch at the kitchen. Truthfully, everything is close together in our section of the woods. You'll find houses near shops and you'll find shops near houses. I like it that way though, because it keeps all the residents close together. But it's not like we have a choice to move further away or have more space, because it's very limited in the space that the scientists decided to keep us in. After lunch, it started to rain, so I decided to stay inside for a while and just talk to see what the latest gossip was around. While talking, Silver just came inside all wet and dripping with rainwater all over her. I couldn't help but laugh at her innocence. She didn't know that the rain was a sign of danger, but that's all right. Silver and I are here as I type right now. Luckily, I'm bringing my computer everywhere so I have something to do even when there's absolutely nothing. Currently, I'm just typing and sipping hot chocolate and Silver is sleeping. Kyra.
Friday the 13th. It's Silver. Today has been a really long and exhausting day for me. The whole town is preparing for the Bloody Woman ghost. It's the latest gossip around Maple Woods. Everyone expects her to return tonight because it's Friday the 13th. Today, the scientists haven't been testing on me due to many reasons. Instead, I've been selling umbrellas and helping Kyra put shades around. The blood of the Bloody Woman ghost is deadly, so in order to avoid it, we had to keep everything safe. Everyone in town has been quiet ever since the sign of the Bloody Woman ghost have been showing up. We all don't want to anger the ghost more. I had to go now. I know this wasn't really much, but everyone here is busy, and Kyra needs help loading some supplies, so see you guys in the next post. Silver out.
The Bloody Woman ghost arrives. Just as Silver typed in the post before, the town was preparing all day so that we would stay safe from the Bloody Woman ghost. We were putting up umbrellas and shades all around our section of the Maple Woods. Scientists are keeping both young children and valuable experiments mostly indoors. In fact, the scientist that I live with urged me to come inside, same for Silver and the scientist she lives with, but we both refused and decided to stay out to help. So while we were taking a break, I realized how stupid I was for not keeping track of the date, which is not particularly important unless you're a scientist. I went to go read Silver's post, and once I saw her title, Friday the 13th, my stomach instantly dropped. And that's how I truly know that the rain was a truly unreliable source of determining when the Bloody Woman ghost is about to come. At that moment, I knew she was coming today because we were all taught that years ago that the Bloody Woman ghost died that day. Well, she wasn't exactly dead. So what happened before was that she was once an experiment. This was even before this section of the Maple Woods existed. Anyway, the experiment went totally wrong and she got severely injured, but the scientists could heal her no matter what. After weeks, she gained the ability to fly, side effects of the experiment, but she felt dead inside. This confused her a lot, so she started growing more impatient and more insane in a sense. So she ran away and comes out here randomly at times because she thinks that the scientists killed her, and it makes sense to her to hurt other people too. Luckily, both Silver and I were under an umbrella when her dark blood started raining on us. Everybody was screaming and shouting, some even crying out in pain because they were unfortunate enough not to be under any form of protection. I grabbed Silver and I held her close as the red rain continued. Chaos was everywhere, of course. Scientists pulling children indoors even if they don't belong to them, people running everywhere and crying out in pain when a drop of her acidic blood fell on their skin. I made Silver close her eyes, and good thing that I did, because minutes later I saw a still lifeless body on the ground. At that moment, I knew I had to get Silver out of here, so I pulled the umbrella out of the ground and dragged her quickly to the house that I lived in, which was luckily only a minute away. The scientists that I lived with, Cecilia and Darius, were already there and basically pulled us inside. Seconds afterwards, they put shades on all of our windows and were talking really fast. Silver went to a window which was yet to be covered and gasped. "Kyra, look," she called over. I immediately went over to her side and peeked out the window. My mouth hung wide open as I saw a glimpse of the Bloody Woman ghost passing right by our window. She wasn't there for long, but it was long enough for me to see her bloody brown hair and a darker shade of her brown eyes. It sent chills down my spine, and I suddenly became nervous. "Get away from there," said Cecilia, stomping towards our direction. "Darius, cover this window. I'm taking these girls to the pantry." Right now, Silver and I are in the pantry, and we're probably going to be stuck here for the rest of the night. Since Silver decided to open a bag of cookies, I'm going to stop here for today. Wish us good luck for the night. Kyra.
Hey, Silver in. Our computer is messed up. Kyra suggested I blog today since it's our only chance. The internet connection hasn't been the very best since the arrival of the Bloody Woman ghost. She damaged all of our supplies. The scientists believe that the Bloody Woman ghost will be returning soon, so we are trying to prepare ourselves for the worst. Maple Woods food supply is running low. We have no shelter and very little space. I have to go now, connection running low. Silver out.
Results. The results of the Bloody Woman ghost coming to Maple Woods is devastating for our town. Her toxic blood rain killed off some experiments and destroyed many things around town. Nobody was allowed to leave their houses for the last few days, but they finally let us out. The scientists expect her to return though, and with our food supplies running low, some scientists went out to the outside world to shop for supplies. Unfortunately, I didn't have much free time today. The scientists were experimenting on me till now. They said they wanted to make my eyes look starry, so they took a tool and quickly changed the color of my eyes. I looked in the mirror and they look stunning. They are purple with hints of blue and glittery specks everywhere. I didn't know what the purpose of the experiment was, but the results were amazing. Next, they did a more painful experiment. They decided to set my hair on fire. They put some green liquid on my head and then lit my red hair. I think the experiment was successful, but truthfully, I don't remember much of it. They probably gave me something so that I would forget the pain. My hair is naturally red from childhood because an experiment made it so. According to the scientists, my birth hair was black. A little bit before I decided to post on this blog, I went to go talk to Jade, a girl my age. She's a good source of what's going on in the town because she always knows what's going on. Need to know anything? She asked me before I even had the chance to open my mouth. I just want to know what's going around town, I replied. Remember Cody, the animal times human experiment? Yeah, he died when the BWG came. I heard one of his scientists was heartbroken because they apparently loved him. Don't know which one though. My bet's on math. I personally think Lydia. I'll let you know when I find anything else out. Thank you. With that, I went to Miss Gracie's house and decided to post on this blog. I wonder what Silver is up to. Probably spreading rumors. Kyra.
Back to normal. Hi guys. Kyra already explained what the Bloody Woman ghost did to our town, but now everything is back to the way that it was. A little. Some have lost loved ones and many were wounded, but we all got the care. Kyra and I never really opened up about our friendship, so I would like to. Years ago when we were very young, Kyra and I were put together in a lab for testing. This was the scientist's first experiment on me, so they were very careful. Kyra and I were one of the young children there, and there were several teens and adults being tested on. Before the scientist's first experiment started on me, Kyra was the only one who comforted and told me that everything was going to be okay. She said, "It's completely normal and painless. The scientist won't lose you, and remember, I'm going to be right here." But a few years later, one experiment caused me to lose my leg. I don't remember how, but the scientists said I was fragile, and they said they couldn't do anything about it. The scientists put me to deep sleep and locked me in the lab for a few days, and then gossip spread it around. They were terrible rumors, but Kyra was the only one who knew what happened. She usually visited me often because she helped Dr. Martin. Kyra was always there to keep me sane, especially when the scientists performed many surgeries that left me permanent scars. We became very close afterwards, and in a few weeks, I was given an artificial leg. Nobody understands our friendship, but we are indeed inseparable. Signing off right now. I had to go help Mrs. Ward with Lobi, her subject. Silver out.
Barrier. Today was a school day, so I woke up early and I went over to the clothing shop so that I could help out with early morning customers before heading off to school. The first customer of the day was Ann Emerson. I studied her closely and she looked worse than ever. I don't exactly know what her scientists did to her, but the damage was most definitely permanent. Her jaw was hanging right open and her fingers looked as if they were stretched out and then painted with disgusting green paint. "How can I help you?" I asked softly as she approached me. "Sweetie, can you fix me up for a date?" she asked sweetly. I smirked and offered her a seat on a bench. "Who are you going out with?" I asked as I started to brush her hair in a fancy braid. She smiled. "Kyle Larkey. Sweet guy, isn't he?" I kneeled in front of her and took a handful of jewels and green liquid. Never met him personally. Which experiment? He's a part of the organ replacement experiment. "Well, good luck with your date," I replied as I finished putting the last pieces of jewels under her eyes. I looked at her, and she looked fine, but I thought she looked a little too plain for a date, so I quickly took some eyeshadow and painted her eyelids a light purple color. Then I topped it off with a few strokes of eyeliner. "Thank you, sweetie," she said as she left the store. I smiled and I looked at the time. It was almost time for school, so I told everybody I was leaving, and then I dashed out the door to our tiny school. I did my research, and I find it weird how outsiders go for school for 180 days. I honestly wonder how you guys find the time. In the Maple Woods, we aren't really required to go to school. We go to school maybe once every 2 months, I guess. Experimenting honestly takes up a lot of time and energy. Anyway, school wasn't particularly interesting today. They were teaching math and science, which are subjects that I'm not particularly interested in. During lunch, my friend Chloe decided to do something stupid. She decided to go to the barrier. The barrier is basically the very edge of town that no one can go through. The scientists built it a long time ago so that nobody finds us. While I was there, I took a quick picture to show you guys. The fence is not the barrier. The scientists just put it there so it was easier to explain to children not to go over the fence. Anyways, Chloe decided that she could go through it without getting hurt, and since most children were young, they encouraged her to try. "You're going to get hurt," I said, but of course she just ignored me and then jumped at the barrier. Almost immediately, she was charged with green electricity. She started to cry. I rolled my eyes and then carried her all the way to the teacher so that they could deal with her. After school, Silver and I went around town and just walked around talking about life and stuff. Kyra.
So we're back. Hi guys, oh my gosh, it's been forever. The scientists haven't been letting Kyra and I use the computer because we've been very busy with experiments and many different projects going around in Maple Woods. But sorry for the lack of posts from us. Lately, I've been in the labs, barely getting any sunlight and time to socialize with everyone outside. Also, the scientists have been working on a new, improved artificial leg for me. I'm super excited for it. The experiments are all over now because the scientists have been collecting a lot of data on my body. I'm free to do whatever until next week. Kyra has been a huge support and motivator. They did difficult tests on me, but she was always right there by me. Well, gonna go and catch up a bit on gossip and adventures. See you in the next post.
Adventures. This is a picture that Silver drew on our computer. It's me and her. She's the one on the right and I'm the one on the left. This is so sweet. I seriously love this girl to death. Anyway, today Silver and I decided to go out adventuring in the lesser populated areas in the Maple Woods. It's been very tough with all the experiments going on, so we decided we deserved a little break. Especially Silver, because this girl is a fighter through all her experiments. "Kyra," Silver said lazily as she poked me. "Yeah, so? Can we visit Macy since we're going there?" "Absolutely not," I exclaimed while shaking my head and laughing. "You believe everything that girl says. She once convinced you that the Maple Woods was a gigantic pancake that you could eat, and you started eating the ground. But Kyra, never again." "Fine, but can we at least visit Kaylin?" Silver looked at me with wide eyes. "Yeah, that's fine." I smiled and held Silver's hand as we approached the more isolated part of the Maple Woods. This is where all the doctors, the elderly, and the used up live. "Welcome, Miss Kyra and Miss Silver," greeted the doctor. "How can we help you?" "We're here to visit a friend," Silver yelled excitedly while bouncing up and down. "I see," the doctor gently smiled. "You girls best be on your way." With that, the doctor left and Silver and I headed towards the used up home. There we met up with Kaylin, a used up experiment about Silver's age. "You look different, Kyra. What have the scientists done to you?" asked Kaylin. "They made me more fabulous, of course," I replied with a smirk. "Kaylin, do you have any new gossip for us?" Silver asked with a grin. "Of course, dear Silver." Kaylin lowered his voice. "I heard Cecilia is pregnant." "With whose baby?" asked Silver and I both at once. Kaylin laughed. "I don't know, but I'll let you know when I find out." Afterwards, Silver and I returned back to our section of the Maple Woods, and we went to the clothing shop so that I could work. After that, Silver and I both went back to our houses. When I returned back to mine, I looked at Cecilia closer to see if what Kaylin had said was true. Cecilia did seem to have a bigger stomach, plus Kaylin must have seen her with the doctors testing to see if she had a tiny life form inside of her. Anyway, I have to go rest and just relax now. Kyra.
Old Patrick. Hey guys, for the past week, Karen and I have been catching up with some old friends. We found out that Cecilia is pregnant, as Kyra said in her last post, and many other rumors. Well, yesterday, Kyra and I visited an old friend, Patrick. He's a crazy old man that lives in Maple Woods for as long as we can remember. Patrick claims that he can tell the future, but we all know it's nonsense after he refused to take his doses. We stopped by old Patrick's to see what's new. He greeted us warmly and caught us up with all the gossip in town. Kyra told him about Cecilia, and Patrick says he knew Cecilia was pregnant 3 months ago. Of course, it's just nonsense. Before we left, Patrick looked us both in the eye and told us something very unusual and creepy. I can tell by the look in his face that he was extremely frightened, but I wasn't sure if old Patrick was serious or just kidding. Kyra told me not to worry about it, so we both shrugged the thought off. What Patrick said is just as crazy nonsense after all. Last night, I kind of told everyone, but it didn't seem to bother them. The scientists also laughed it off. I guess Patrick is just playing games. Well, this is the last post for now. Silver out.
Missing, Eva. So when I woke up, I realized that a breathing body was resting in my arms. I quickly looked down and sighed in relief that it's Silver. We had a sleepover last night, which was awesome. Outsiders seem to have sleepovers all the time, but it's different for us. Because it's essential that we stay with our scientists, they must plan out sleepovers months in advance, or we have them when there's an emergency outside. Anyway, I gently woke Silver up and told her it was morning time. We both got ready and ran to the kitchen for breakfast. We expected Darius in the kitchen making oatmeal, but he wasn't there for some reason, so we both got some bread and milk instead. As we ate, I noticed there was a lot of screaming and noise outside. "What's happening out there?" I asked Silver as she bit into her bread. "Is the bloody woman ghost back?" "I don't think so," said Silver, "but it's strange that Cecilia and Darius aren't here." "Yeah, maybe there's some other emergency outside. We probably shouldn't go out today." We both finished our breakfast and then went to the living room to look out the windows. Everybody was yelling and papers were flying everywhere. "Silver, go and get one of those papers, okay?" With that, Silver quickly opened the front door and grabbed the piece of paper and ran back inside. We both looked at it and then looked at each other with worry. The paper said, "Missing, Eva." This made my head pound tremendously. How could Eva go missing? Like Birdie. This didn't make sense one single bit to me. Eva was only a 9-year-old child. "Kyra, Silver." Darius came running through the door. "Don't come outside." "We know," I said, as Silver held up the paper. Darius sighed and rubbed his head with his hands. "The Maple Woods is in shutdown, so Silver will have to stay here for a while. Go to your room, Kyra," along with Silver. I let Darius's words sink into me, and I started to freak out as Silver held my hand on our way to my room. When the Maple Woods shuts down, nobody is allowed to go outside for at least a week, unless you're a scientist. And all experiments are held up until the problem is resolved or until it's temporarily safe. "How did Eva escape, Kyra?" asked Silver, jumping on my bed. "This is only the second time someone was able to escape. What went wrong?" "I'm not sure. Maybe Birdie and Eva are similar in one way. I feel scared." "Me too, Kyra. But on the bright side, I get to stay here for a week." "You're right, Sil. Come on, let's go draw something." So now, as I'm typing this, Silver is on the floor drawing some doodles of the Maple Woods, and I'm going to go join her. Kyra. Unfortunately, Silver and I were never able to finish this story, but we are both glad that our blog still exists today so that we can revisit it anytime. I wanted to thank Silver for being a part of this video as well as being a part of my life for so many years. I couldn't have done any of this without you.